Hello and welcome. Welcome to Biotopia. We are a little biological museum in Uppsala. My name is Daniel and I work here. This evening we have a guest speaker, Agnès Brosset.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, what will you be talking about this evening?
I'm going to talk about plant as usual, but wild plant in particular, and how domestication, which is the process of having cultivated the plant from the wild to the variety we know now, has affected the food we eat today.
Very, very interesting. In case you have any questions, you who are watching online, you're very welcome to write them in the chat, and we will make sure that Agnes hears them so she can answer them. Otherwise, I enjoy the lecture.
Thank you. Danny, will you put the PowerPoint? Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, my name is Agnès Brosset. I am a doctor in plant chemical ecology and also a herb grower. I have started a herb farm here in Uppsala, in Hospital Trädgården, and also an herbalist. So I know about plant chemicals and their role for the ecosystem, but also for human. And tonight I'm going to talk about why wild plants matter and how domestication change our food. And this topic is part of my PhD thesis that I have completed 2 years ago, in which I have studied wild plants and cultivated plant and see their chemicals and how and see how these plants respond to different factors in the environment in a chemical point of view. And by doing so, I have found interesting results about the chemistry of wild and cultivated plant and how actually this change in chemistry can also affect our food and health today. So it's what I'm going to talk about, and the data I am going to share will be part of my work, but also part of some other work that are done today in research. So today in Europe we count about 1,600 wild edible plants. And actually, this count has been done by François Coupelan, which is a French famous ethnobotanist who has worked in a lot of countries in Europe. And himself, he has identified, used, tested 1,600 wild edible plants. And his estimation is it's an underestimation probably of what wild edible plant we can find in Europe today. So if there is 1,600 wild edible plants across Europe in nature, why are they not part of our diet today? And I think this is a very interesting question, because us, humans, come from nature also. And for millions and millions of years, we have co-evolved with the nature. We have been using plants for food, for medicine, for fiber, for clothing, for building. And so we have used those wild plants. So what happened? How we lost this knowledge of eating the wild plants? And this is because about 12,000 years ago, humans decided across it's something that is homogeneous across the world. Different populations started to cultivate wild plants. So they selected a couple of plants only. And when they did stop their nomadic lifestyle in following the animals across the season and more settle into villages, they started to cultivate a couple of species and also of animals, so both plant and animals. And so we had, for example, rye was one of the first plants to have been taken from nature and started to be cultivated. Hammer, rice, cotton, potato, for example. And when human has done this, it has a bit removed himself from the nature and across generation lose some knowledge of using the wild herbs. And actually this was a problem because it's also during this time that human populations start to face famine because of the years they were a wrong harvest or something was going on with the harvest failed because of climatic reasons. They have lost some of their ability to find food in nature. And it was also some consequence on the plant themselves. So when the wild, for example, this is corn, and the original corn in the wild, it's a small little plant. We do a few seeds on the stem. And when the population started to cultivate it, they just after each season of cultivation, they selected among the plants they have grown, the one who gave the biggest yield, the largest yield. And so on, slowly and slowly, generation after generation, the domestication of plant, which is this process of cultivating wild plant into nowadays cultivars, has changed completely the morphology, so how the plant look like, for more bigger plant producing larger seeds or more seeds. But the biggest change in our food was done actually only 60 years ago with the Green Revolution, where we started to use nitrogen fertilizer to grow plants and really select high yielded variety through genetic modification or genetic selection. And we also stopped to have small, diverse farm, but more extended, large monoculture of one variety everywhere in the field. And this had brought some positive and negative, or it has some consequence. One of them is if we look at the yield, so the amount of crop you harvest in the certain area at the beginning of the Green Revolution, and now it has increased of 200%, for example, for wheat and maize, which is huge. So on the same area of land, you grow 200 more quantity of food. But this has affected our plant drastically. And so as I told you, the data I'm going to show you tonight are part of my PhD thesis. So my PhD thesis was focused on looking the difference between wild and cultivated brassica, which is a mustard plant, and how the two different categories of plant respond to different environmental factors. It could be pest, pollution, plant communication, also receiving chemicals from the environment. And so for doing this, I have studied several wild species and several cultivated species. A fact which is interesting is like so many of our vegetables today, like cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, rapeseeds, come from the one single cultivated plant that we have extremely modified through domestication. So anyway, I have selected several of these wild mustard, and I'm passing a bit confusing, and see their response. So before I show you the data, I would like first to introduce you about a bit the chemicals of the plant, because it can be a bit quite specific what I'm talking about. So the data I've collected, the compound I have looked were the volatile organic compound, who are phytochemicals. So phytochemicals is chemical produced by plant. Among these chemicals, but it's a lot, there is some who are volatile, and this is the one we can smell. And I look at the smell of the plant. I collected their smell when they were exposed to different factors. Plants produce those smell for different reasons. It's mostly at first for protection against UV light, for example, protection against temperature, herbivore, any kind of pest. It can be disease too. It can be for communication. And these chemicals will be affected also depending of the temperature, depending if the plant is photosynthesis or in respiration, depending also of the nutrient availability. Can depend also of whether there is an herbivore or not on the plant. So I took my different species, the wild one and the cultivated one. In green, you can see the wild, and in yellow, the cultivated. And I look at this smell, this VOC, this volatile organic compound. And here it's a graph combining the data, summarizing the different species I have studied. I have exposed them to herbivory, so an herbivore, and see whether they were emitting the same quantity of volatile. And I could not see the difference. Overall, if there is no herbivore or an herbivore, the wild and the cultivated were having the same quantity of chemicals. So it doesn't seem that cultivation has affected their quantity. But if we look at the quality, that means which chemical the plant are emitted, then we could see a difference. And the difference was quite huge. We had much more diverse chemicals in wild plant than we had in cultivated plant. And this was also true for the quantity for some compound, which is a nitrogen and sulfur containing compound. And in mustard, they are important because they are the main defense for the plant against pests, and is what caused the mustard to taste mustard. You know, like the Dijon mustard, which is hot. It's because there's a lot of this sulfur compound. So this spicy. And actually the wild plant, they were emitting much more compound and also higher quantity, as we can see, while the cultivated has almost none, and some of them they had none. So like rapeseeds, for example, that we don't cultivate for, like the mustard had some, because we want that taste of sulfur compound, but the rapeseed did not have, for example. So they have lost this compound, and for mustard plant, it's this compound that allow them to defend against all the generalist insect, the insect which are eating on every plant. But some insect, the specialists, they know better how to detoxify. So it's like their first barrier against most of the pests. And this was true also in other work, not only in mustard plant, but also, for example, in cultivated blueberries. So some studies look at the difference between the wild blueberries and the cultivated blueberries. And here they looked at the anthocyanin and phenolic compound. We know them often as this antioxidant compound, this phenolic compound. And so that's why also we are often told, eat blueberries because they are full of antioxidants. It's because there's this compound inside. And they found that actually in the wild, in the cultivated, which is a gray, dark gray, they have less phenolic compound. So they have less antioxidant. The same in tomato. So there is wild and cultivated tomato. And in this graph, we actually look at the minerals content, not the defense compound, but other kind of, so the minerals, like the calcium, the natrium, the magnesium, the zinc, for example. And they also found much more of these minerals into the wild than the cultivated species. Here again, they look also the phenolic compounds, so all these antioxidants. And we have here BB, it's a cultivated variety. LA is the wild variety or species. And MWC, it's actually a landrace, so an old variety. And they found that we can see the modern variety has low amount of phenolic compound, while the wild one has much more, and the landrace is in between. And this is not without consequence for the soil and food security. It seems like there is a trade-off for plants. So more we select plant for yield, so for having a big vegetables or a high reproduction, a high lot of seeds, for example, they decrease the amount of chemicals they are producing. And this is one of the factors why today we need a lot of pesticides to protect our crop. There is other reason, it's not the only one, but it participates for it. And using pesticides completely pollute our soil and also pollute our food. There is also an example of how the myth of chemicals affect plant defense. This was done on the wild and cultivated blueberries. And this graph is actually the caterpillar of the gypsy moth eating on wild and cultivated, and how this behavior change, whether the insect is eating on wild or cultivated species. And they could see that on the caterpillar, it more leaves, it more quantity of cultivated than it eat of the wild plants, and it has a higher gain in mass and also a lower mortality. While the wild variety, they did not gain so much mass, and they have higher mortality rate. So that means the plant chemicals could really prevent the infestation and reduce the herbivory. There is also consequence on human health. Indeed, we have been consuming plants from the wild, plants that were full of chemicals for thousands, if it's not millions of years. And so it has affected our metabolism. This, I truly believe that our metabolism, who has co-evolved with wild plants, has adapted to be at its optimal when it receives all this high quantity of chemicals. And this is supported by the fact that many of these phytochemicals that are seen as not essential, because they are not like the main vitamins or the main calorie, but they are more like allies for health, like antioxidant compound. Nowadays, we found that they have actually quite an important role for also our health. Indeed, even if it don't bring us calories, they actually give us they bring us antioxidants. So how antioxidants work? They actually will promote the they will when we receive phenolic compound, for example, in our body or antioxidant, they activate the gene that activate the enzyme that detoxify the cell from the oxidation. So there is more enzyme that detoxify our cells. So our cells are cleaner, or they are less suffering from oxidation. They can have anti-inflammatory effect. They can also support the immune system or directly have antimicrobial properties, like garlic, for example. And they can also regulate our metabolism by lowering the cholesterol or the blood, the sugar in the blood, for example. So what happens when we have a diet nowadays, which is mostly made of cultivated fruit and vegetables? So even if we eat a sufficient amount of fruit and vegetables, meat also, which is cultivated, and eat also cultivated plant, and cultivated grains and refined grains. So what can we do to bring in all these nutrients or these phytochemicals, these allies of our health that now are lower in cultivated plants? So the research now is looking into which gene from wild plant that were synthesizing for these chemicals and this defense. How can we reintroduce them in cultivated species to maintain and a big yield and a defense? But this is making it's taking gene and making some gene change, and it's making genetically modified organism with unknown consequence for the ecosystem and for ourselves. So what other method we have which is close to us to have more phytochemicals in our diet? And I truly believe we need to rethink instead of running for innovation and modification of gene. We should just rethink how our agriculture system is done and prioritize practices that will protect, regenerate the land and use, for example, land race. So there is some study who show that when a domesticated, so a modern cultivar of a plant is grown under more organic practices with a good soil, it has more nutrient than if this same cultivar is grown under conventional agriculture. So just the method on how we grow it can affect their nutritional content. So just smaller scale farming, better soil can already bring in more minerals, more phytochemicals also in our plants. To grow more land race, which mean these old traditional varieties also, who has more phytochemicals than the modern, and introduced wild herbs also, or leave wild herbs in our garden to consume them. And I also think we should also relearn ourselves to recognize wild plants to use for food. Because when you know how to forage and forage for food, this is what you can bring back after an hour foraging in your bucket. So a very diversified bucket of plenty of species of phytochemicals and of color. And if you want to know whether your plate is full of phytochemicals, you just need to look whether your plate is colorful or not. Very easy. So foraging, if tomorrow we are all foraging, is it also very sustainable? And we need to think that we are also part in the ecosystem, and it's not just wild food for free, but it's a gift which is given to us, and so that must be respected. And so careful to really forage with conscious when you are out in the wild. It can be also to grow some wild species in our garden or reintroduce some, or if that you may find and collect in the nature through seeds. It can be also supporting rewilding of area. So there is 1,600 edible wild plant species in Europe today. So if you wanna get to know them and start to find them out for increasing the number of phytochemicals in your plate, there is a very good author. She is called Lisen Sudgren here in Sweden, and she has wrote plenty of books about foraging for wild plants. So in her book, you can already, like, there is 33 of them in her first book. I think a bit more in the second book. I have it here, and she has also like forest species and a couple of maritime species, I think also. So it's very interesting books that we can get. I also run foraging walk in summer in Uppsala. So I have one foraging walk per month. So I had one in May, one in June, and I'm going to have one in July and one in August. And often I'd like during this foraging walk at the end to do one small snacks with people so they can see how they can use wild plant and get idea on how to use wild plant. Yes, so if you want to know more about my research, actually my PhD thesis is online on Google. You need to go on Google Scholar and write my name, Agnès Brosset. And also, for knowing more about the farm activity I am doing in Uppsala, I have a website, nordiskaörter.com, and also my social media. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay.
I have one. Are your conclusions valid also for like meat and fish?
I have not studied this, so it will be hard for me to say.
But an educated guess.
Yeah, an educated guess will say that, well, meat and fish, they also, especially meat, it's known, for example, for this omega-3 content. So we know that, for example, eggs that come from conventional farming, or even meat which is come from conventional farming with animals who eat mostly dried grains, contain less omega-3 than if the same animal are fed on like a pasture, for example, and a fresh plant. So I will say yes, it does.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So you said earlier that the smells and the phytochemicals protect against UV light.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yes, a part.
I'm just wondering kind of if you can explain kind of how that works, because I'm thinking like, for example, in Uppsala, you know, you walk through a pine forest and you smell the lovely smell of pine, which is clearly these phytochemicals. How does that protect the tree against UV light? And the other thing which is connected to this question is you also said that plants communicate through smells, presumably with other plants. I guess that's what you're talking about, or you're talking about communicating with other species?
How they communicate also with other species and within themselves.
Because in a forest or in a kind of terroir situation, from what I understand, they communicate through their roots. So how do they communicate through their smells?
Yes.
So it's kind of a twofold question.
Yes. So the first one is a little chemical, I would say. So UV light, it's mostly like antioxidant into the cell. But for example, pollution, it's the same. So there is some compound where terpenes. And when they are emitted, they are like, it's formed this kind of cloud of chemicals just above the cell. And when there is too much UV light or, for example, pollution that happens, before it reaches the plant cells, it reaches this blend of chemicals. And some of them react with either the pollution or the sunlight and will quench or will neutralize a bit or transform. There will be a chemical reaction happening, and so what happens and what reaches the cell, a proper cell and the plant, it's already changed compared to what arrived. So this is how there is some like chemicals reaction happening with some terpenes, which is a group of plant chemicals, VOC. So yes, so this was for the first question, and then how plants communicate through smell. Yeah, this is very interesting. I could do just a talk for that. I have done, yes. I could, well, so the plant, they permanently emit some odors, and often when there is this odor can change depending on how the environment, what is going on in the environment. And for example, if there is a pest like an herbivore, there is a large increase of chemicals that are emitted, and this change is detected by the neighbor species. It can be the same or different species, and they will perceive this increase and this change because some compounds are new and they were not emitted when there was no insect, and they will adapt their behavior, the neighbor. And when I say adapt their behavior, is that they will themselves start to defend. So they will start to emit these chemicals even before the insect comes. So they are protected. So that's one form of communication. And I have also one colleague who has shown that he has worked with pine, and he has a very nice paper showing also that how it can be transported, like on above the forest and reach quite some distance in forest. So yes. Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I was curious, the plants that you used for the experiments to see the quantity of chemicals, did they have pesticides? Were they plants that were cultivated with pesticides or not?
No, because when we grow them from seeds. And
you grew them yourself?
Yeah, I grew them myself. So I collected seeds or bought seeds from cultivar and collected some in the wild. And I also received some seeds from conservation, like in UK, like don't remember their name, but and then I grow them. So under the same condition.
Of course. Yes. Okay.
So it's only what I expose them to, or just their difference in their chemical. That is.
Yes. And do you think, for instance, when we buy organic seeds from a company that we know they have been producing organic seeds for decades, can those, even if they are cultivated, can those seeds have become better because they have been organic for generations?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. My guess,
the chemical production.
I will do the same. My educating guess will be yes, because yes, because there is some study who show that the practices, just how you grow it, really affect the quantity of chemicals inside, and that is what we call also there is a genetic. So the when you generation to a generation, you pass a genetic patrimoine.
Epigenetics.
And there is also epigenetic, which is how the environmental factor play on the expression of the gene. This also can be acquired and passed to the next generation. So if you had a plant that has been in an organic field, so the factor that have affected the gene will play on the genome expression, and this can pass to the next generation.
So you mean that a cultivated plant can acquire this from neighbors that are wild?
No, from just the soil quality and
the
how
conditions.
it's cultivated. Yes, conditions.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, I'm thinking a lot about the soil quality, because if you have a rich soil full of minerals, you will have naturally a plant containing more minerals. And if you have a soil which is also full of microbes, you will also have a plant that will gather. You have nutrients who are more bioavailable. And also, microbes play on the gene of the plant. So they can affect the expression and how the plant will... it's really, really interesting.
Thank you so much.
No.
A couple of things just occurring to me. Do you know if there's been much research done on the effect on the microbiome of eating wild herbs compared to cultivated varieties?
Oh, human microbiome? Yeah, no, I have not looked at that, but I heard a study which has been done on native tribe and modern population, and they look at the microbiome diversity, so the diversity in the gut flora. And I think it was something like native population, they had something like 700 species in their guts. And modern, they were between 200 to 400 species for like a civil, not modern, how do we say, industrialized country. Yes, so there's a half shrink in diversity. It's the same than the plant in diversity of microbes, and also it's known that people who do gardenings, they also have a higher microbiome because they often have leftover soil on the hand, or even sometimes you just take it and eat it. So I will guess that that wild plant is the same. When you eat wild plant, you have a larger a richer, more diverse microbiome.
Thank you. I've heard it's the same with people who make sourdough bread.
Ah, yes, I guess so. Yes.
So my other question is related to mustard, which you talked about.
Yes.
Sorry to ask so many questions. So I'm wondering if you plant mustard seeds around your garden with your vegetables, because they have this chemical that gets rid of the pests quite well, that you said. Would that help with pest control, ecological pest control in a vegetable garden? Like, for example, if I planted mustard seeds around the cabbage or the beans or whatever, would that help with pest control?
You need to. I had a friend, a colleague in my lab who was actually studying that. She was growing cabbage and tested the several outside crop. And which species was it? There's one wild mustard plant. I think it's Brassica. Oh, I forgot the name. Don't remember. But there is one, and actually the insect, the specialist, because for the cabbage, it's mostly specialist insect that eat them in your garden. It's not every kind of insect. It's insect who knows how to eat on mustard plant, and they smell the odors to lay eggs then on the plant, and then it's often the caterpillar that will come and eat, or the little beetle. And they detect the cabbage according to the smell, if they smell this sulfur compound. So there is one wild plant, they like to lay eggs, but then the eggs doesn't survive, or they have a less chance of surviving. So she tested if we grow them around the cabbage, indeed, whether it will attract the insect to come and lay eggs, and then they will just stay there and eat there. I don't know. She defended last November, I think. I have not looked. Elena, I am sorry. I have not looked your thesis. No, I have not looked the result. But I would guess that it could work, but I will not give my hand on, because knowing how cabbage are so susceptible to spring pests, it's so hard if you don't. The best is to cover it with a fleece. So yeah, no, my guess would be you can try, but if you are in a spot where it's really much large infestation, I would say it's always better to cover with fleece. Yeah.
I will experiment. And my final question is about the wild plants that we see a lot around Uppsala at the moment, which are these yellow kind of wild brassica plants that look like wraps. Are they?
Yeah.
Are they related? Is that a kind of wild wraps, or is that a kind of wild mustard, or what is that?
I think it's rusgbe. So it's hard because nowadays there is also rewildernization of cultivated variety. So it can be a wild rhapsid that cultivated rhapsids that seeds end up in the wild through the wind, and this happen also. And I find it very hard to know which one is which one. But yeah, it's really invasive. Like it's quite invasive. Mustard originally is from a Mediterranean area.
Is it edible?
It is edible. Yes, leaves, flowers. Do we have questions online? Because if not, maybe it's a good time also to look at the wild herbs.
We don't have any questions at the moment, but let's take a look at the wild herbs.
Yeah. So.
Stand and take
Yeah.
show a few for the camera.
Yes. Yes, so that's a good transition. So indeed, right now there is a lot of wild herbs. I don't have the wild mustard, but this I just gathered in like 2-3 minutes outside Biotopia, just to show how it's so easy to find a wild edible plant. So yeah, let's see. Oh, first, just by the entrance there is a oak tree. So this is it's more the seeds, the nut. Sorry. That can be eaten. Food is very full of tannin, so it needs to be washed a lot before you eat them. If not, it's really a bit dry. Then we have some clover here, or clover in Swedish, trifolium. So this also, the flower, the leaves can be eaten. Very well known. Dandelion, so mascros, Taraxacum officinale in Latin. Very good, super good wild edible. The flower can be eaten, the stem can be eaten, the leaves can be eaten, the root can be eaten. Everything in dandelion is good. And dandelion is really full in spring of minerals, potassium, and vitamin C also. The root also contain a lot of inulin, which is a sugar that our microbiome like. So it's also a prebiotic in that way. We have here wheat plister, or white dead nettles, the Lamium album, which it's also quite common this year. We find it quite everywhere. Easily, it's a plant from the Lamiaceae family, so the mint family. We recognize the mint family because it has a square stem and then opposed leaves that are alternate. So they are opposed and then 90-degree opposed. And the flower also of a mint family has this kind of shape of mouth, wolf mouth, often it's called. Or you can eat the leaves, the flower. Yeah, in the salad. It has a bit of mushroomy taste. You can also have it fried in the pan, maybe with mushroom, for example. We have yarrow, relleca, which is Achille millefolium, one of my favorites. The flower also, when it will be in flower, can be collected. It's very hard, the flower, so it's more for drinks or tea. But the leaves are very fibery also, so I like you can cut them very finely to put in a salad. You can fry them, but I like to blend them in pesto or make a sauce with it. Or olive oil, and then you blend some yarrow inside for your salad, for example. The flavor? But you can try. I don't know. It's like yarrow, no? What did you say? Black pepper. Maybe. Rucola, licorice, black pepper. So you test it and and you will see. We have very soon finished. The flowers are gone now, but Gulviva so co-sleep. But it's in Sweden, in some places, it is protected in some region. And also this one, which is vitmora in Swedish. It's a gallium, so a kind of cleaver in English. Edible also. Now, when it's young, I like to have it in salad, but now it starts to be very hard. Like when it goes into flower. So then you can only eat like the petals, the leaves. Sorry. And the last one I found was cow parsley or hundscakes. Very common here in Sweden. It's, I think, everywhere. Antricus sylvestris, a plant to careful, because it's you can confund. It's a plant from the carrot family, which is one of the family where you find the most toxic plant, where a few grams can kill you. So it's good to know how to identify this cow parsley. And yeah, so often the key identification it has hair. Plant from the carrot family who has hair should be okay. So it's one of the characteristic should be no. It's one of the characteristics because the one who are toxic they don't have hair, so it has to have hair on the stem. But sometimes when it grows, the hair a bit disappear, so it's not that easy. And the stem it's bridgy, it's not smooth. It's really bridgy. Oh, so that's. Voilà, that is other characteristic, and it smells carrot also if you smell it. While the toxic one don't smell carrot. Oh, you eat the leaves, the flower, the stem. It's nice. So you can peel the stem. Actually, now they start to be very hard when they go into flower. But when they are young, tender, when they are young and hairy. Oh, I just peel the stem and then I like to cut it into pieces. No, I just eat it in raw in salad. A lot of wild I eat them raw in salad. The one I cooked dandelion. I cooked nettles, mostly. But yeah, a lot of them I just eat in salads. It's easy and it's fresh and you get all the nutrients, the best, like that. Or I make tea with everything. So if you ask me what I do with plants, I make tea. So I dry and make tea.
Should we finish there? And you also press the button. Over here. Yeah. So with that, I think we should end here. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, Agnès.
Thank you, Danny.
You left in the physical audience. You're welcome to stay around and mingle a little bit. And for our digital viewers, you're welcome to check in some of our other videos that we've made with together.
Yes.
We've done one on plant communication.
Yeah. Yes.
Which answers some of the questions that came up.
Yeah, I think it was my first talk I did
Yes.
2-3 years ago.
So you've found your way to our channel by watching this. So you can check some of the other stuff out. And hopefully we'll be back with some more interesting things in the autumn for coming Wednesday evenings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.